Across the 7 seasons of the BattleBots reboot, we've seen tons of amazing fights. But in today's video I'm going to go over why I think Sawblaze vs Blacksmith, in my personal opinion, is the best BattleBot fight we've ever seen. Now I talked about this in my top 10 fights video, of course, with it being at number 1. I want to go a bit more in depth with this time. So let's set the stage. On one hand we've got Blacksmith, who isn't exactly the most successful BattleBot we've ever seen. They've had some decent performances against the like of Bite Force, Rotator, and some other pretty big names. On the other hand we have Sawblaze. Of course we all know Sawblaze nowadays as the Season 7 BattleBots champion, but at the time they were a bit less successful actually, with their only real success they've had so far in BattleBots was making a round of 16 in Season 3. So both of these robots weren't exactly top tier machines at the time. The fight begins with a good drive from Sawblaze, trying to get underneath Blacksmith. Then Blacksmith gets a good hammer shot in, and another one as Sawblaze spins round, tipping over, while Blacksmith pushes back. So far the fight begins with Blacksmith on top, but then Sawblaze gets underneath Blacksmith and hurls them into the screws. Blacksmith misses with the hammer, Sawblaze oversteers, and Blacksmith takes advantage, getting underneath Sawblaze but missing with the hammer yet again. Sawblaze is now overturned, and Blacksmith can't quite land the hit him with the hammer. Just after that, they get 2 good shots in, and Sawblaze counteracts with the hammer saw. Now so far you can already see why I like this fight so much. It's incredibly back and forth. 1 second it's Blacksmith getting the hammer in, the other second it's Sawblaze pushing back and using the overhead spinner. Following this, Sawblaze gets jammed in the screws, and Blacksmith takes advantage, getting some more hammer shots in. So far, it's pretty close on who's winning. Then Blacksmith overturns Sawblaze yet again, and doesn't quite land a solid shot to Sawblaze. Sawblaze then gets underneath Blacksmith, pushes him around into the pulverizer, and gets the overhead spinner into play. Blacksmith then of course hits Black with the hammer. Then Sawblaze gets an incredible push on Blacksmith, taking them straight into the screws and landing the overhead spinner. They do this again into the arena sidewall, getting another solid shot. You can now see some visible damage on Blacksmith, a few little gashes in the top of the armour. And Blacksmith gets an incredible shot on Sawblaze, square at the top of the machine before doing some extra bonus little hits, not really hitting anything. Sawblaze then gets underneath Blacksmith and pushes them into the screws yet again. A pretty common tactic for Sawblaze in this fight. Blacksmith momentarily gets caught up on the screw slot before then landing the hammer back into play. A really good manoeuvre from Blacksmith, controlling Sawblaze around and using the hammer to pin them down. Sawblaze gets some space with some good driving and turns to the side of Blacksmith and pushes them straight into the screws, but almost goes a bit too fast for their own good. But they manage to get underneath Blacksmith yet again, but Blacksmith counteracts with the hammer. Now the biggest problem for Sawblaze in this fight is that they keep tipping over slightly, which allows Blacksmith to get a few more hammer shots in. But even when Sawblaze haven't got Blacksmith in front of them, they're still using the overhead spinner backwards to attack Blacksmith. As the clock ticks down, Sawblaze gets one more nice push against Blacksmith, and the fight goes to the judges. This single-handedly might be the most back and forth fight we've ever seen in BattleBots. 1 second it's Sawblaze pushing, the next second Blacksmith using the hammer, then the next second it's Sawblaze with the overhead spinner getting into play, then the next second Sawblaze is oversteering and Blacksmith takes advantage. It's one of the most tactical fights we've ever seen, and both drivers are on point, Jamison Go and Alkindle. I think Alkindle is a bit of an underrated driver. I don't see loads of people talking about him as one of the top dogs in BattleBots, but I don't think that's particularly fair. Of course, Jamison Go does get a lot of love for his driving, and it's not difficult to see why. He was arguably the better driver in this fight, getting some good pushes in against Blacksmith, into the screws, into the pulverizer, into the sidewalls. While Blacksmith didn't push around as much, they were incredibly aggressive with the hammer. And this fight went to the judges. Now in my personal opinion, I think the fight should have gone to Blacksmith. Blacksmith caused more damage than Sawblaze because they took out Sawblaze's weapon. Not only that, but Blacksmith were arguably more aggressive than Sawblaze, constantly swinging the hammer at Sawblaze. However, control points should obviously go to Sawblaze, with Blacksmith sometimes driving a little bit poorly, and Sawblaze pushing them around a lot, which definitely secures the control points. Unfortunately, however, the fight went to Sawblaze. It doesn't take away from the fact that this fight was absolutely incredible in my opinion. Action-packed, tactical, well-driven, back and forth, and it is an incredibly close encounter between 2 pretty good machines, but not top-tier machines. I think it's made this fight a really good one to watch, and I think it's the best fight in BattleBots history. Honourable mentions of course going to Sawblaze vs Minotaur from the latest season, which was another really good fight, and Valkyrie vs Rotator from Season 5, which had tons of sparks and tons of hits. So that's my thoughts on Sawblaze vs Blacksmith. I think this is, for me as a hammer enjoyer, this is a 10 out of 10 fight, and yeah, I think it's the best fight ever. So what do you think is the best fight ever? Leave your comments below, and I'll tell you what I think in the comment section. Goodbye.